welcome everybody. This is our, which town hall is this? 11th?
It is number 11.
Yeah, there were 2 a week for a little while. Now we've been doing them 1 a week, but so this is the 11th town hall. I heard very loud and clear that people wanted these to keep going, so we'll keep doing them. So as usual, I'm going to go over kind of the rules of the road, and then we'll get to it. Mike is going to be a little late today, but I'm your host, John Best. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Best Innovation Group. I used to work at a lot of various credit unions, including Suncoast, Westcom, GTE, Federal Credit Union out in Florida. And we do cool things for credit unions. We've been doing a lot of work lately in voice. Mike obviously is the CU broadcast host, and we pulled this together just to disseminate information and to encourage discussion and encourage collaboration amongst everyone. Just going back real quick, I want to thank our sponsors, CU Service Network. Doug's here. Hi, Doug.
Hello, John. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and I know there's a couple topics here. I know you'll have some information on. Also, we have Member Pass, which is really starting to be something important. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm not sure if we have Dante or Julie here, but if not, I'll be talking about. But they're another one of our sponsors, and obviously CU Broadcast. So, without further ado, the usual. I'll talk a little bit about some things I'm seeing out there. The purpose of that is just to spur conversation. If you would like to talk, if you have something you want to ask the group, and man, there are a lot of amazing people here. I certainly would encourage you to let Melissa know in the chat, which will show you where that's at. Because of Zoom bombing, we want to make sure that you do send us and let us know you're here. So you can start that now if you want, if you know how to use the chat. Many of you have been here many times. Just check in so we know. A lot of times people use unusual names for their Zoom names or something like that. We just don't want anything inappropriate going on. If there's information that you hear from a credit union, you want to talk to them, we encourage you to use the chat to talk to them directly. If there's any information that we think is for a broader audience, we would ask that you post that to everyone in the chat. And if we get the sense that something comes up that needs a longer discussion, we'll get that over to Mike Lawson's group. These are recorded, so if you do speak, if you do decide to share, which we certainly hope you will, just recognize that this will be posted out there, and we have a lot of traffic on people going and viewing these. So, and I know we had a little trouble getting the last one out. Zoom has, I don't know if you guys saw, but Zoom went from 10 million users to 200 million users. And you know what? I'm going to give them some props, because if I told Tom that tomorrow he'd have 20 times the traffic he'd have on his website, he'd probably have a heart attack. So it's pretty impressive how quickly.
Wouldn't be good. Would not be good.
How quickly Zoom is scaled up. So good for them. And the fact that we can even use this is really great. So in case you're wondering where the chat is, it's not all that hard to find, but in the bottom there's a little chat button. And if you click it, it'll slide out on the right. And also if you hit the participants, that'll slide out too. You can see the various people that are here. And that's where you can talk in the chat. Again, we hope that you'll just take a minute, check in so that we know you're here, and we'd appreciate that. So a couple things. This is the first one that seems to be coming up quite a bit, and I just wanted to talk a bit about it. So as people are getting their stimulus checks, particularly people who are have debt at the credit union or at the bank, in this case, it looks like there's been quite a bit of garnishing going on. Not sure where we are on that as credit unions, and just because he's here, and because I always pick on him, and because he always has this really cool view, I'm going to ask Tom about this. But Tom, I'm assuming you're given that where you are, you're seeing some of this.
Yeah, it's interesting, John, and good afternoon, everybody.
Oh, and introduce yourself if you don't mind, Tom.
Oh, Tom O'Shea, CEO of Aspire Federal Credit Union. We're in Clark, New Jersey, essentially a suburb of New York. We have a large, our populations largely commute into New York City. So we have a lot of connections in there. Our membership is multi-occupational, a lot of government. So we deal with a lot of people in the New York region, even though we have a national in scope membership. But it's interesting because we had that conversation. I talked to a couple of attorneys about it and did a lot of reading on the whole stimulus payment. And what we decided is, we're going to look at this on a case-by-case basis, and we're going to call these members, because legally we are entitled, regardless of what the New York Attorney General says, This is a federal issue. It's a income tax refund. We can garnish. We can retain this for lost debt or for negative shares. And that's really the area we've seen it is in the negative share side. And unfortunately, it's not been too big of a problem, but we definitely have picked up some money here and there for people that have recently overdrawn their accounts. When we have the
And that's with the fees turned off, right?
Yes. Oh
yeah, because you're not charging any overdraft fees at the moment.
No, we're not charging them the fees on this.
And that's courtesy pay too, right? No fees on that?
Yes.
Okay.
But we're reaching out to the member. We're not waiting for them to call. We're saying, hey, you set this up a year or two ago with the IRS, and they're using the instruction you had, and it's a recovery for us. And we're working through it, but it's definitely case by case. And we said, you know what? If we're entitled and these people had overdrawn it and they still have their account with us, let's talk to them about this money. And it's worked out. At the end of the day, it's been working out.
So do you worry at all from the perspective of fair lenders, things like that, like that you are applying the same logic to case by case? Like I could see, for example, oh, this guy's $35 overdrawn. So what? He's going to lose $35 of that $1,200 check or whatever. Whereas someone who is far more overdrawn, you might not do it because maybe you look at their situation and decide different. Is there any concern around that?
Well, our actually biggest concern was on the reputation risk. If somebody were to take this and go to the press that all the credit unions taking our money and all.
Which is what's happening here. These are all.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we've addressed it, each case, has helped us. And in one case, we had a woman it was $36, and we reached out to her, and she was thankful that we called her. Wasn't really sure where the money was going to go, and said, yeah, I owed you the money. So, and I didn't know, nobody had reached out. It's a small amount. So we reached out, and she was fine. So we reopened her account, and we reestablished her membership, but we left the remainder in her account. And she's using us again. So, we turned it into a positive in that respect. So it's really, the reputation is really where the concern is.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because, what you were just saying, to make that call, and you're clearly a smaller credit union. So the scale of this is not such that you couldn't use your staff to make those calls, but there's probably a lot of much bigger credit unions. I know Kevin's credit union, and he's not where he can talk to us, but some of the bigger credit unions, it would be difficult to go on that case-by-case basis, I imagine.
Yeah, and we're a digitally oriented credit union. We have no branches, so our business is call center. So we are, we have 22,000 members. Our call center group is around, even for that small of a number, our call center is around 15 people. So we have a good-sized call center relative to our staff and membership. And we do these outbound calls to our members on a regular basis when card breaches and promotions, other things like that. We'll slice and dice. We'll look at the higher value members and make calls on a regular basis. So it's not uncommon for us, and we are prepared to reach out.
Yeah, I can certainly see that.
Yeah.
So if you were in California, and I'll throw this at, I think Jonathan got a cool background too. He's just trying to outdo me. But if you were in California or something, and you can see here, and I was going to ask Kevin to speak to this, who is in California, where they could protect the stimulus checks. What you're saying is, hey, this is a federal issue. Even if Cuomo sent, or not Cuomo, your governor's Chris Christie in it, said, hey, we're not doing that, or whoever it is. They said we're not doing. What's that?
Phil Murphy, Comrade Murphy.
Comrade Murphy, yeah, you certainly wouldn't follow that rule. Okay.
Right. That's what we believe.
Does anybody else want to comment on that? Jonathan, I know you're across the river there.
So we're taking a bit different approach. So we have, we have 330,000 members, and we're dealing with this, especially since we're a state chartered credit union in the state of New York. This puts us in a little bit different of a position, especially legally, with the New York State AG making this decree that we have to protect these funds. So we've for about the past 3 or 4 days, we've been working nonstop to figure out how to do this and how to do it effectively. Originally, we had said, well, the AG had made this decree unilaterally. It didn't seem like they had really consulted with the Department of Financial Services. So we reached out to DFS in the state of New York, and they said, no, you got to follow along with what the AG said. So what we've done is myself, my team, a bunch of others in the organization, we've been creating we're on the Scimitar core. We've been creating a bunch of custom code essentially to protect these IRS stimulus payments when they come in, whether it's ACH, check, mobile remote deposit capture, ATM deposits, and we're sort of walling off anybody's account that gets a stimulus payment in terms of being excluded from negative share sweeps, delinquent loan sweeps, fees, all of that kind of stuff. So we've had to take a much more automated approach because it's clear that at least for a credit union chartered in the state of New York who has to be under the guidance of New York State DFS, that we are expected to follow this guidance, and we've been working frantically to follow that guidance ever since it was published a few days ago. So it's probably been as hectic as I've seen it since the whole pandemic really hit in full force in the region, just because of the scramble to make this an automated process for us versus a sort of one-off process, because we have so many people that fall into this bucket. For example, we know that we've just based on our first runs of our code to identify these payments, we've identified at least just in ACH alone 46,000 members who have gotten them, and so without an automated process, we would be dead in the water. So
and those are the easy. I was just thinking through the program.
Those are the easy ones.
Yeah. What do you do when they take it and put it in a check? Because all a check looks like is a deposit. And then
Right.
what do you do? Like, let's say I deposit the $1,200, but it seems like you could take up to that $1,200, right? So
Yes.
you could say, hey, that $36 that Tom clearly had to beat up some poor little old lady over. If she had $1,250, he would leave her with $1,214. See, I got the math thing in that space. And so it feels like, man, I like the running balance on that and protecting it. And then
It's a pain.
but how do you deal with she needs to spend it on food and things. But so I guess I just spun my own head out trying to figure it out, because I don't even know how I would, because you got 46,000. I assume out of 330,000 members, you have an active of about 192,000 that are really kind of
roughly
there. So that means that there's 150,000 checks out there, roughly, or 150,000 other shoes to fall, whether they be check over the counter, through the drive-through, or in an ATM, or taking a picture of in your remote deposit.
Yep.
The only thing I think you could do is really go crazy and code in like, please tell us if this is a stimulus check. I mean,
so one of the things, and the checks, the ACH part of this is the easy part. It's the checks that are more difficult. So what we're actually having to do is work with our mobile remote deposit capture partner Vertify, as well as our just normal sort of image processing partner, ProfitStars Image Center, to pull data files out of those systems on a daily basis and process them into Epicus through a batch FM, where we
run
then
a tracking record.
Exactly, you got it. And the other thing on the teller side is we created some custom programming so that when they do accept a stimulus check, they run this and it will add that tracking directly onto that member's account, so that we know, hey, they deposited a stimulus check and we need to not be sweeping their funds now. So and the other thing we're trying to do, because again, all of this is still really, really
and it could change
ambiguous.
tomorrow. Yeah.
That's correct. So we've also had to make it so that, we have to set an end date on when we're going to exclude these accounts from being swept. So what we've done is we've set it 60 days out, and we've got a program written that if we need to extend those expirations out, we'll go ahead and run it and extend it for another chunk of time. But yeah, that's part of the problem, is we really don't know when this will end. So we're having to try and remain as flexible as possible as we try and deal with this order.
And yeah,
Part of the problem you run into with this, though, is on your screen, debt collectors, garnishments, levies,
Yeah.
court orders. A sheriff could have been sitting on a levy notice prior to, the whole thing, and they could now walk into your door and say, freeze those funds or give me those
Exactly.
funds. And you got to, you can't have these states conflicting with federal when this is clearly federal IRS tax refund money. They classified it as that for a reason, because they could have easily classified it a different way that would have protected, like Social Security, protected it from garnishments and all, but they didn't. They consciously didn't. And you can hold the money for a certain period of time, but if you're really considering it that type of money, there is no hold. It's protected for the duration, and it becomes it's a big issue. It's a problem all the way around. There is no good approach or answer at this stage to the whole thing,
Yeah.
whether it's reputational,
It's a mess.
legal, compliance. It's a can of worms right now.
well, and how long before they start wanting to protect other funds like the extra
Right.
600 for unemployment? As a matter of fact, Andrew asked a good question in the chat from OCCU. Is anybody tracking the unemployment? So as you see the unemployment start to show up, are you marking those accounts? Because that's another of those canaries in the coal mine to say, hey, if this person's collecting unemployment and they got a car with you, and I was actually reading an article yesterday regarding oil. I guess in 2008 when this happened, and 2007, oil was sort of the canary in the coal mine to tell us that cars were going to go off a ledge. One, buying new cars, and then two, the ones they have, like, hey, I don't even drive the thing. It's out in the parking lot. Doesn't look like I'm going to drive it anytime soon. We only need one. I would expect also, I would start ramping up your repo selling capability. That's what happened in 2008. I remember Suncoast had to open in almost a car lot, across the street. So, but if you're tracking unemployment payments, maybe put it into the Everone, because Andrew's curious, and I think it's a good question. Kevin, you're in California. Do you know anything about this stimulus checks from the debt collectors?
No, I don't know anything specific, John. I can tell you that from a PR perspective, all the credit unions, I'm sure, are paying close attention, because that would not go over well with trying to take negative shares back or whatever. I'm sure that that's the biggest concern. And knowing, our pretty heavily Democratic state, I think that that we as California credit unions in general would get a lot of pushback if those funds were being used to collect on neg shares or delinquent loans.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Kevin. And, Andrew's asking about the unemployment because they had a huge spike, and he was wondering if that was nationwide or just related to the fact that Oregon has two squirrels in some sort of wheel that actually operates their unemployment. I guess they call it COBOL. It's the same thing that runs the SBA, unfortunately. But I don't know if anybody else has seen that spike. I mean, Tom and Jonathan, you guys being in the middle of it, are you watching that pretty closely?
I mean, so for us, we had the first. I mean, that first day, the 15th, when the ACH hit, it was just nutty how crazy our ACH process was that day. I was talking to our operations folks, and we have, generally some exception reports in terms of ACH mismatch, account mismatches, and if we have more than 100 a day, we're thinking there's something going on. When that initial wave of ACH payments hit, we had 3,500 mismatches that our staff had to work that day to get people their money because either their accounts were closed, they had switched accounts, it was just nuts. And the other thing that we noticed, and I'm happy that our digital banking provider was able to match pace, but the other thing that we've noticed and even ongoing, because we're still on the Q2 system as well as Alchemy for digital banking, is that it seems to be a little sketchy as to if the digital banking providers are really able to keep up with the pace of service utilization and that they're seeing. I know that NCR was having outages, Banno had an outage, Q2 has had outages just because of system overload, and that's something we're keeping a really close eye on right now, because it is driving a ton of traffic. Alchemy, which is our primary platform now, had on the 15th and a few days after, they were seeing 70% more traffic to their platform than what they would normally see on a normal business day. So that has been substantial and something we're keeping a very close eye on.
So one idea on that, I mentioned this in the last town hall. I would auto enroll everybody in alerts, and if you're running that job and you've already had to do the work to figure out the stimulus, just email them, because here's what happens: they just keep coming back to check the stove. They'll keep logging in over and over, and they got no purpose but to go in and see if that stimulus check hit.
You got it. And we do auto enroll everybody in ACH alerts, so that is something we've actually been doing that for quite a while. So that's the good news, is that people do get alerted, but our members are paranoid, and so they like to log in anyways and see that dollar, those dollars in their share account. So it's again, thankfully we have not seen any. It's gotten a little slow at times, but we haven't seen any actual outages or downtime due to the traffic load.
Balance. Just when that hits, I'd say, and your balance is whatever. I mean, who cares, right? Balance change. Right. That's not. I love your point, though. But here's an idea I have for both you and Tom and anyone else that's listening. And this is something that Kevin invented. It was a horrible, horrible, terrible thing, but it works, which is, I also don't want them ACHing this money out of the credit union to pay some other bill. I think that if they're in the debt, in the hole with you, and you've forgiven that hole, then the outbound ACH ought to be restricted, because I don't want them sending it out to some other, provider. You want them to use it for the purpose. And Kevin, we had that on. I'm kidding when I say it was a horrible thing. It was actually a really good thing. But it doesn't mean they have to pay it off. It just means that, hey, keep it with us for purposes of this, because you don't want them transferring out elsewhere, or at least make them call you to make that determination. I don't know. What do you think, Kevin? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
And the other twist on that is that we also gave members on demand a 2-month skip pay for free.
Right.
So now you could say, all right, well, we just gave that, all things being equal, even if they were delinquent, we said, all right, we're going to give you a 2-month skip pay. So we've compounded the problem by saying, not only are we not going to take it, we don't want it. So here it is. And so it became a much larger issue. And I wanted to say on the ACH piece, following up on Jonathan, that the exceptions blew up. And that's how we started discovering not only the negative share and to deal with it, but closed accounts. Going to your other screen there, was we have people, most of the money was sent to an account that was given to the IRS a year ago. Majority of it was from the 2018 taxes that were filed in early 2019. So when you had members that closed their accounts just in the normal course of business, they were moving or whatever reason, not a problem, but just closed their account. Now we're getting this deposit. And we said, you know what, if we return that, these people, it's going to be weeks before they see this money, because God knows what's going to happen on the IRS, when they're going to get to it. They're probably going to put them in a queue.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of check in June. So what we decided was reopen all these accounts and then make those calls out. And look, they want to keep it with us, great. we'll instant issue a debit card for them and reactivate their account, or we'll cut them a check and mail them the check and mail them the money directly.
That's
And I
pretty
think
cool.
we had a little bit of both in there. They appreciate that, we had a lot of goodwill because we called and they said, all right, I'll just keep it there and I'll keep the account open. But others that moved away, we provided them with the funds off a credit union check to make sure they got the money now.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably one of the bigger problems of not going into the wrong account. But the other challenge is that we've heard a lot of stories of the money going in the wrong account and the other person spending it before they get a chance to even get to it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So Andrew points out that 86%, which I'm assuming is a high, of their enrolled users for their platform, their home banking platform at OCCU, logged in on 4/15. That's just crazy. I don't know if you guys know your percentages, but certainly we predicted this the week before. We said, hey, you're going to get hammered. And Lisa says, you're lucky they log in. These ones call. But I think in the case of the ACH, if you were to restrict that ACH movement to say, hey, if you have online ACH and self-directed ACH, and to say, look, you can't just outbound this money to somewhere else. It's for you to use as a stimulus. We've forgiven these loans, as you point out, Tom, and also you're in the hole. It doesn't seem right to let them to ruin the liquidity of the credit union in that regard as well. So it just seems like that would, I think as a member, I would understand that. I would say, okay, I get it. You've been generous, and I can see why you would think this way. And then maybe they make the choice to pay the loan or to pay the debt in order to move that money. And yeah, they do it under a little duress, but it's still better that they make that choice and not you. But I think I would think that would be a fair approach.
Right. The fact we put it on the table for them helped us a lot too.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I was, one of the things I think too, you talked about alerts. One of the alerts that we had was a daily alert of balances. It included ACH warehouse pending deposits. And if you can get an alert like that, I know my kids, who 2 of the 4 are unemployed as part of this, and they're getting the unemployment benefits. It was like, the lotto for them when they got the stimulus check and then unemployment with the extra unemployment. So they're checking online bank because they have no idea what program they're in to get it. They just know that all this money showed up in their account.
And now they think it's just going to keep happening. So
they're hitting mobile every few hours like this is the lotto. When's the next one coming? When's the next one coming?
Sure.
So sending those daily alerts might be an opportunity to push some of those calls away, or online, even logins away. That could reduce those volumes.
Jonathan, too, for bonus points, man, it wouldn't take much to wire up Twilio. And if you got mobile numbers, to send it out. Because I wonder how many of those emails are just going in the spam or whatever.
Well, that's always our challenge too. So yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the things
Twilio is a text program. Yeah. Sorry, I should tell people.
So one of the things we do as well with our alerts, and it depends on if the member has elected to do this or not. But we also send those alerts via SMS to members too, if they've elected to do that. We don't send them by default that way, but if they've signed up, we send them to the email no matter what. And then if they also sign up for text, then we will send that to them that way as well. But you're absolutely right. The email is large. You never know if somebody's going to open it, and by and large they don't. So it's hit or miss.
Yeah. But I know for me, if I got a text that said the stimulus check has arrived from the credit union, and the usual reply stop if you don't want to receive these messages, this was done as a courtesy, and you can call us if you're concerned or whatever. I don't know. However, I would be thankful, just like I think that Tom's members are thankful when that was a really, really cool thing to not send those checks back when those accounts were closed. And I know you have some scale where you can do that. I get it, but that's really cool. Well, is there anything else on this topic? I thought this was a big topic, and so I went ahead and threw it in. Sounds like it is. hey, Jonathan, if you want to, sell your rep gens, we'll do the implementation. I'm sure there's a lot of other Scimitar crayons that need help. Big would be happy to do that work and share some sort of profit with Jonathan if he wants. We just need work, so we're happy to do that. It sounds like you put a lot of effort into it. So
yeah, well, and of course, we're part of the challenge for us right now is that, and we've all hit on this. There's so much up in the air right now that this stuff is, yesterday, literally our guidance changed 4 times throughout the day on what we were going to do with this. So it's been a rat race. And every attorney you talk to, every DFS rep, every person you talk to at the state AG, they've all got a little different take. So, as usual in these kind of things, you don't really know what's going to shake out until the first lawsuit hits. And so, and then all of a sudden things start to actually get answered by the court system.
So you're not one of those crayons that allows concealed carry, right? Because programmers can be a little uptight if we're changing their requirements. At least.
Oh, I know. Well, and the kicker is that I've been doing a lot of this programming, so I'm starting to get a little uptight about changing these requirements.
Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. Well, again, reach out to Jonathan if you're working on this, and
happy to share.
And we're happy to, that's the kind of work we're actually really good at. Have done a lot of work. Plus, we're really familiar with mobile deposit. So
yeah,
that big. All right, so moving on here. This is another one that I think we may need to do as part of the credit union. So we have always encouraged our members to do cyber fraud, but now this is really picking up, and I'm concerned about it. There is a whole bunch of different scams out there trying to get these stimulus checks. One, I think there's opportunity to, in the same programming that Jonathan's doing, trying to protect these things from his their own overdraft and feeing. We may need to look at something for this, particularly in the nursing homes and the for the elderly. Not sure what, but this is something that is picking up steam from what I can tell. And I'm really worried that, one, imagine that every hackster knew that every account that they pretty much had in their little back pocket inside a few weeks was actually going to have $1,200 in it. That's where we are. And so all these guys that have, all the leaked passwords and things, and it's not you, it's the systems that got owned at home. But the reason that they haven't been going in and out is because it's too much to figure out when the money's in there and ACH it out. We're going to see that. We're going to see a whole lot of other things. But I like this guidance that Melissa found from the Federal Trade Commission. I really think that as part of that email that you send out about the stimulus, it may be worthwhile. Oop, the lights just went out on Tom. That's probably not good. Actually, he just hadn't moved in so long that his lights gave up on him. That used to happen to me. But, that we should be trying to protect these as well. So I didn't know if anybody's doing anything around this that wants to share any comments. Has anybody seen anything like this? I am expecting, while you're trying to figure out how to protect it from your own fees, the bad guys are trying to figure out how to take it.
We're seeing, within our membership, we're seeing the scam emails start to hit some of our members. We've had some members reporting them. Actually, in our this month's risk committee meeting that myself, or information security officer, and the other senior staff of the credit union have, we're highlighting this, and we're publishing information out to members, specifically in our COVID-19 information on our website and in newsletters about, really being careful. We haven't taken any additional steps to try and protect, I guess what I would say, what we would say are maybe the most vulnerable accounts. We haven't really undertaken that effort yet, honestly, because we've been so distracted by all the other stuff we've been trying to protect. But to your point, John, I think we're clearly seeing this type of scam ramp up, and it's hitting us, it's hitting employees, it's hitting our members, and it has us definitely nervous right now.
Yeah,
Well,
John, that
go ahead,
used to
Tom.
be the branches, when they would target senior citizens, the branch was the first line of defense because the seniors were not that digitally savvy. They would come into the office and they'd say, I need a check, I need a wire or an ACH done.
Yeah, I want to
And,
send $18,000 to the troll relief fund or whatever.
yeah, and and so they would be the first line of defense and protect these members and tell them that this is a scam and all that. And unfortunately, we don't have that now. And we do a lot of constant contact communications, and our coronavirus page and our fraud pages. We post all these things. Jim Stickley, the SO, Stickley on Security, he's a really good source for this information. He had done a thing with Rawson Reports a week or two ago, which is a really good one. But what we're seeing too, beyond the stimulus checks, is these guys are sending blanket emails about the payment protection, the payroll protection with the P3 program, and they're saying, hey, we'll process your P3. Give us your name, address, birth date, social security number, all the information that you need. And they're just basically stealing it. And it's just because it's all digital, we don't see it. And it's really, really hard. And they're getting better at their English language skills and their digital skills. And these emails are just very authentic looking. And,
to your point, not having the branch ability and knowing that, hey, we're in the middle of this, and they will offer to help. They'll say, oh, well, we could just do this Zoom. We can share screens. We can get on your phone and help you do this.
Yeah.
One of the things I've seen out here in Colorado is this, it's the fourth one down, research before you donate. So there's a lot of people preying on the nursing home folks because, one, they're at super high risk, as we've seen. Secondly, they've got big hearts. They like the people that care for them. And so a lot of the charities and the frauds I've been seeing is PPE for nurses or PPE for healthcare workers. Donate, you don't need your stimulus, you get your Social Security. And so we're seeing some of these charity type GoFundMe type things. That's another thing to maybe run some reports on is to look for GoFundMe. That's a big one. Anything that's coming out in that direct ACH format. Also the debit cards, because that's become more prominent online where you can do a PayPal instant transfer from a debit card. So I guess what I'm saying is don't, and I hate to say this, but it's just like if we had DDoS attacks, right? DDoS attacks are often, when I say that, just so for everybody knows, it's a distributive denial of service, the kind of thing that brings down your website and your home banking, but it's not really meant to be invasive. It's just meant to sort of deny service. But what we found over the last few years, and particularly even right now, is that those are often smoke screens for some sort of other improprietary attack that maybe they're just trying to busy up your entire team chasing that around while they try to slip a $250,000 ACH out the door. And so one thing just to consider is, and I don't even know how to say this to you because it feels horrible to say, but you got to watch the front door and the back door at the moment. And I think that's a big piece. But I also think that Crayons really should be pushing this if they're not. I think that not only should they be pushing it in their digital, but even in their drive-throughs. I could see signs like this, branded for Hudson Valley or branded for Aspire, branded for OCCU, because I think what also is happening, and I know my mom does this. My mom and a bunch of her friends, when they're allowed to, will hop in their car to go make a bank trip, and they'll roll through that drive-through, and all of them will do a transaction. And, they'll read everything that's there if you have it posted. So it might be useful. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but multiple people in a car doing more than one transaction. I know if nothing else, if you're my mom does it. So it's something to consider because only one of them could see well enough to drive, or maybe it takes two of them to see well enough to drive. I don't know. But just something else to consider. So anybody else have any comments on this or want to speak to it? All right, Doug, have you, just to throw this out there, I know shared branching has been involved in this as well because they can go to other places. Anything from your perspective?
No, it's interesting. We had a call yesterday with co-op quarterly call, and the shared branching fraud is actually going down. They implemented the Cooper system, the fraud detection system last year, and they were comparing 2019 versus 2020, on an annual basis, but also on a monthly basis. And so I think with the AI that's built into it and that's learning, I think it's perfect, because right now we could be more susceptible to fraud, and actually it's pushing fraud down. So I think, maybe for once we're headed in the right direction from a share branching and fraud perspective.
But it also could be related to the lack of availability too, right?
You mean just in terms of what, John?
Well, like some credit unions have stopped doing it. So
Yeah. So right now, the best stats we have is was probably in the 17% range of closed facilities, and now it's probably 25 to 30, depending on the part of the country.
Yeah.
Locations that are closed.
All right. Well, this is good conversation. If you want this link, you can see it there, ftc.gov compliant. And obviously, you can always go back and review this, or Melissa can throw it in the everyone. But I highly recommend that we do something around this. It just seemed like it was. It's definitely going to hurt us one way or another. So, this was interesting. And I actually had this happen. So Geico came back to me, and USAA, I have with both, and basically said, yeah, here you're not driving as much. And they took, I guess, I didn't call them or anything. They just reduced my monthly, so did Farmers, they just reduced the monthly charge for car insurance. And I don't know how that relates to Gap or any of that, but it just seemed interesting. And it's also maybe another tip for, maybe you do have to call in some situations. I don't know, but certainly seems like something we could explore on behalf of the membership. But if that is an opportunity, that's good for you, because that's not protected money that you could, use to catch back up on the delinquencies. But yeah, I don't know. Has anybody heard of this?
The line, yeah, New Jersey and New York area, it's happening a lot. The line out here now is that cars get 3 weeks to the gallon. And
but oil is actually less than $1, less than zero. So you should.
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
I paid $1.73 yesterday, which is crazy. And but yeah, the insurance companies out here, New Jersey manufacturers are insured. They're sending every policyholder a 15% rebate now. And this is a cooperative company, so we usually get 10 to 15% rebates at the end of each year. So we're getting an additional 15% because they're not seeing the usage is down, the claims are down, losses are down. So they're doing this, and we're seeing it across a lot of insurance companies in this area. Yeah.
So the question is, how are they sending that money back too? Or, in my case, I got a rebate, because I pay with ACH.
Yeah, we're going to check from them.
Okay. Just seemed like it was an interesting, anything that has to do with our members getting money and free money, I think is in our wheelhouse. And so
yeah,
I thought this was
that concept too. And now, okay, how do you apply that to us? Because now vehicles were not going to be used as much. So maybe the values are better for a car.
Yeah.
Long term, we're starting to talk about the long term. What does that mean for car usage and car purchases, car sharing, near and dear to our heart, public transportation? Are you going to use taxis? Are you going to use Uber or Lyft? We're looking at ways we can provide disinfectant services, discounted rates for taxi drivers in New York. So that, there's some companies that are doing things that last 90 days on all surfaces.
Yeah, electrostatic. We talked about that. We actually got the information.
So we're looking at that to see, can we negotiate a good rate for our taxi drivers to use this, and then have some kind of a sticker, like protected by ADT, some kind of sticker on the window.
So it does give you cancer, you know that, right?
Pardon?
No, I said it gives you cancer, you know that. But don't worry, I was just kidding.
But you're not gonna die of a virus.
Yeah, you'll be safe from COVID. Not so much the other. No,
Okay.
I think those are all important points. I think another important point is I would look at all 2-car home loans that I have,
Mhm.
and I would start to consider whether or not both those cars would be kept. I would, uh, just, thinking about oil. If you're seeing oil to the point where literally they're having to pay people to take it away because of the production, that means that based on, again, the 2008 stuff we saw, it's pretty likely that the cars are to follow. They're pretty, energy in the cars, right? So in in that mindset, I would definitely run some numbers on, hey, we got 2 cars, we only need one, we'll just let them come get this one if things get worse. I don't know, I would start looking at that pretty
But you
heavily.
also, you got people in, India that now see the Himalayas in different countries. You can see the pictures before and after how they're clearing up. I mean, this could also spur a big move towards electric vehicles or super low emission vehicles as well, where people say, wow, look at what we've done, and look what happens when we don't pollute like we had. It's not, all these small discrete little moves have made a major impact on the environments in different parts of the world. And there could be an opportunity here too to encourage or support people that are saying, you know what, I'm going to take a more environmentally conscious approach to my life. From solar installations to electric vehicles.
Well, and there's the carbon offset, which may become something that becomes more important. Doug just had some information from Cuddle. Doug, you wanna share that with everyone?
Sure, John. So they were reporting earlier, which a lot of you've probably seen with all this going on and people being unsure about their financial future. They're estimating that the annual sales volume for new cars is going to go from about 16 million
Fading out.
to about 12.5 million units, so about 25-30%. Another interesting piece that came up is that if this goes on much longer, they're estimating they could lose about 10% of the car dealers around the country just because they don't have the cash flow and can't keep up if this continues, because a lot of this will move into 2021, and at what point can they continue to bankroll their inventory? So it's going to be interesting in the car business.
One of the things I'd be interested in asking Tony about is what production looks like from Toyota, from Detroit, those types of areas. I'm wondering, how they're bringing that up. So, but just because he was fading in and out a little bit, sorry, Doug, it sounded like you were maybe having a little bit of an internet glitch, but 16 million units to 12.5 million units is what Cuddle said. So about a 27% reduction, which is quite a bit, in that regard, in terms of, it's telling us a story. All of this is telling us a story. And I think the people that recognize what the story is telling are going to be people who survive this and come out on the other side stronger and with more opportunity. We talked about this a little bit. What if your stimulus check goes to the wrong bank account? I wanted to just see, and basically, the government's guidance says, yeah, that's your fault. And to Tom's point, you set this up a year ago or whatever, but I got to imagine we're dealing with this to some extent. And Jonathan, you're shaking your head with the guy. Jonathan, it's not have sat up since we talked about this. Recoding the stimulus protection.
Yeah. Well, this is where we're. This is that whole account mismatch process where that first day we saw the ACHs where we had 3,500 records to go through and try and figure out what went where and why. So this is absolutely. I mean, we've had to enlist people from other areas within the organization into our payments group so that we can work these queues essentially more quickly, because like you said, these people had these accounts, these direct deposits set up with the IRS a year or 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden they've closed their accounts, they've closed a share, they've changed, who knows what. So,
or maybe you changed Mickers.
Well, that's the other thing. So it's a science project, and unfortunately, it's not. we've taken the approach where we don't want to try and necessarily programmatically match all of this up, because if it goes wrong, we want to have somebody on the other end personally trying to make sure we do this right. So everything gets reviewed, whether or not it's a simple fix or it's a really complex fix. So this has been an area where we've been sinking a lot of manpower into. It has been painful.
Now, do we think that like what's the stage rate of this? Do we, but Andrew was asking about all of a sudden employment showing up, but are we 50% through these stimulus checks? Are we done? Are we going to see more? Anybody have any idea?
Good question.
Yeah. Hey, John.
Yes.
It's Andrew. Hey, we have one more. So today was one. Then we have one more scheduled for the 29th. That was the latest things I've seen from payment systems. But they're starting the checks, this week. But I think the main issue is going to be the checks, because if you got two-party checks, they're no longer together. They're not sheltering in place, and so they can't come to the drive-up together to get to have the check cashed. Or the person's deceased, that kind of thing. So we're kind of tabletopping all those kind of different things. But yeah, we're looking at one more round of ACHs next week. But we've only had about maybe 18% of our membership have received a ACH so far.
And theoretically, your active members should all be expecting a stimulus check, whether it be in check or in ACH. So what you're saying is you believe there's another 82% out there that are going to come in physical checks.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully, we have that many that we're the PFI. Hopefully, it's more than 18%. So.
Well, I said 82, so I'm adding.
Yeah. I'll take the 82. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you said you had 86% of all of your active members all log in at once. Was that an all-time high?
That was, yeah. Typically, we're about, when we have about, just for reference, we have about 13,000 online users. And so even when we were looking at stress testing, the max we ever looked at was maybe 6,000, 7,000 logged in at one time. But to have over 10,000 logged in at one time, we were fine. I mean, we had some slowdowns. Our vendor was great, and they spun up another server, and they have redundancies. Spun up another AWS. But I'm seeing chatter every single online banking platform was basically slow last week.
And yeah, I think Tom mentioned it. So that Jonathan, it's you're back in your stadium. So you heard that Gronk's coming back, so you guys can expect to face Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl.
Right.
But coming back around. Go ahead.
Just real quick, this is Doug. I was going to mention when you're talking about the stimulus payments and stuff, we do outsourced accounting for credit unions, including a lot of daily processing and ACH. And as this week rolled in, the exception processing probably increased in a number of the credit unions in about 200 to 300% range. So there's definitely some of these, as you said earlier. But one of the other things that we've seen too, and I don't remember the exact ACH, 3-digit code or whatever, but is the number of them that are coming back that have some sort of deceased member identifier with it as well. So we obviously see some of those, but not in the numbers that we're seeing. Either potentially somebody could have passed away due to COVID recently, or we haven't interacted with them over a period of time and since the last time they have passed away. So that's something else to pay attention to, from a relationship management piece.
So real quick on that, is that something as an overflow if a credit union wanted to work with you, like say Jonathan didn't want to use all his employees or he needed them for something else, is that a file they could send to you and you guys could connect and work on?
Yeah,
Cousins?
Yeah, we work with the credit unions regardless of, which corporate or Fed or whatever, and we do the processing for them in lieu of their staff having to do it, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So Andrew, thank you for piping in on that. I appreciate it. Andrew, it looks like you have a haircut, and I'm pretty jealous for one thing, and for another, it worries me that you're not following the social distancing rule, because
it was all me.
I don't think you could do that to yourself. It looks pretty good.
It was
has
all
a,
me with
he has a
a
Flowbee.
with a razor. Oh, I wish I had Flowbee.
I shaved my mustache off on accident. What happened was I have a CPAP mask and it broke, and I called them and they're like, yeah, you're never going to see one of those anytime soon. They're all being used for the ventilators or whatever. The only other thing I have is the original one that goes over your nose, and I thought, man, it always messes with my mustache. I went to shave it off. I shaved like half to shave it down, and I would have had to have a Hitler mustache, so I decided just to go no mustache. So
No.
if you're wondering what happened to me, just if anybody cares, which they don't. Let's move on. Another round of the PPP is coming up. Clearly, I think we're going to see more rounds of all of this, and some of the products and things that you're building now are going to be reusable. The information today, but of course, it's another jigsaw puzzle on how the heck you even get it, if it's going to be poured into that same bucket that was used for the original PPP. Tom, you mentioned obviously one of the one of the issues that was out there was the larger businesses. Shake Shack, for instance, gave back their 10 million. I think other really, some really good-sized franchise businesses did do some things that were inappropriate. So between those two things, it seems like this is going to be another round that's going to be another chase your tail kind of round for, especially if you're an occupational credit union. Go ahead, Tom. Looks like you had something to say there.
This has been for small businesses has been an absolute disaster. This first round, we have about over 400 small business borrowers that we put into a queue for this, and we're not aware of anyone that received any money whatsoever on this. And what's good though, if you read the text of the new rule that they just approved, they are carving out $30 billion of the next round for credit unions and small community banks to distribute to their customers and their members. So we're going to have a pot of money that is dedicated to the credit union community to support these loans. So they did learn some lessons through the first round. Processors were overwhelmed. SBA working off what are they on a COBOL machine or a Fortran?
No, it's squirrels. It's squirrels that work inside
bringing in the Russians to program it like Y2K. It's just they're not set up for this. But it seemed that it was very lopsided towards preferred customers and big banks and big borrowers for it. So hopefully, if and when that bill gets signed later this week, there's going to be money available for the average, the guy that needs like $20,000 to get through this.
Yeah, I think that's really the key to the whole thing. Is that's where a lot of these middle-sized businesses are. It's like, hey, I just I can't deal with this runoff, but once some of them are picking up and they're making process. So we're about to close out. I want to do one thing. I'm going to share something with you. It's a huge breakthrough. I'm excited to share it. It's they are sponsors, so I don't feel bad about sharing this, but I want to show you what it looks like now to use Member Pass. Kevin, what's the name of used to be Western? Is it Udemy, Udify? Unify, thank you. So this is Unify's teller. You should be able to see, and what we're going to see is an example of a member being authenticated using the Member Pass system with no touch, no handing cards back and forth. How they're inside the building, I don't know, but I think it was a test. I think this is actually Gordon that we'll see, but I'll show you too. So yeah, that is Gordon. So he's going to go through and send him a prompt on his phone directly from Scimitar in this case, which we could do it with any system. Yeah, he's going to use the Member Pass and no ID. And so he just answers it on his phone. He has to put his glasses on because Gordon's getting old. But once he does that, the actual Scimitar screen will just pop and tell you this person's good. This is who it is. So that was it through, I'm going to show you one more. That's it through the teller line. But the thing is this is real now. And it's taken us a long time to get this out there, but it's a super big deal, especially in this model. For example, I'm going to show you the drive-through methodology, and you can think about not putting cards in a, John Ainsworth and I are also talking about adding like deposit slips and some of those things to fill out and do that electronically. So that's one. I'm just going to real quick share the other one. And if you're interested and want to see these videos closer, let me know. I can't quite post them yet, but I can share them, he told me. So I'm going to share this next one here once I get it over, it's a little bit smaller. So 1 second. All right, so this is in a teller line, or the drive up. Udemy is located, I'm surprised they have a drive up, aren't they? Udify is in California, right, Kevin?
They're all over the country. They've got
Okay.
branches probably in over 10 states.
So he's going to do that same process. Yeah, he hits a button and the person's, they've been pre-enrolled. So there's, a little bit of chicken and egg concept here. But you know what? We always were, you remember, Tom, all the discussions we had around enrollment. Well, if there was ever a time to get people to enroll in stuff, this is it. The time is now. You can change behavior. And they're ready to run with this. I think it could be a game changer for the credit union industry, because I also think it could be used to confirm whether they're immune or not. That's another big thing that's going to have to happen in the future, or tested. So anyways, I just wanted to share that. I thought it was really cool. And, regardless of whether it's an advertisement, it's good to know that tech is out there. For those of you that supported and invested in CU Ledger, I highly recommend Member Pass. You reach out to Dante or let me know. I'll get you in touch with whoever. But really incredible and exciting progress that I think could make a big difference for everyone.
Very cool.
So since everybody seems to like these, and we are kind of getting a repeat crowd, but I kind of getting used to you and I like you now. So we're going to do this again next week. I don't know what's going to come of it. I'll give Doug the last word as our sponsor here, and we'll close it out.
Thanks, John. I think on the last town hall, I mentioned we were going to be having the survey results.
Yes, forgot about that. Yep.
We had sent out one more last kind of ditch effort if anybody wants to respond. We're now closing those up. We have closed it off. Meeting with the marketing department. We were trying to get it today before this call. We just couldn't find the time to cram it in. But we're meeting tomorrow to kind of validate results, to make sure everything kind of looks good. There isn't any outliers in terms of response. And then we'll be sharing that out with everybody. So we'll get that over to you, John, so you can share it with your group.
All right. Well, listen, we'll make sure that gets out the door, and we'll see you next week. And please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything that comes up. And I just want to take a moment and thank the people who just continuously contribute. Tom, you always contribute. Thank you so much. And I know everybody on the call appreciates that. Andrew, Jonathan, all these people that keep showing up from all the different credit unions. Thank you. And this will be posted out there. Doug, as always, we thank you for your partnership with BIG and your sponsorship. And if somebody comes up with an idea, let us know. And if you need to reach someone on here, reach out to us and we'll connect you. We'll probably ask them first because, Tom's real weird like that. But other than that, we'll do our best. So
Hey,
thanks,
John,
everyone. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
one good news story before we go.
Oh,
Yes,
there we
the good news. I love good news. Go ahead.
We always talk about, and we are part of like shopping local and trying to support local businesses and do what we can to support them. And what's happened out here in New Jersey is there's a tulip farm that has
A toilet farm?
A tulip farm.
Tulip farm. Okay, I thought you said toilet.
And
Gotcha.
they do an annual tulip festival, and they had this all arranged to be a drive-in festival this year. It's about 2 weeks ago. It's going to be a drive-in festival. And the day before the festival, so this guy gets signs printed, spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. He gets his signs reprinted, he gets staff ready to do like a drive-up, like a COVID test drive-up. Night before, state says, no, you can't have your festival. They shut the guy down literally at the last minute. This has been all over the paper. So this morning, we had an all-staff meeting, and I said to the staff, I said, look, we talk about supporting local, we're local, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give each staff member $50 to send tulips from this farm to your loved ones, your family.
Nice.
A number if you want, anyone you want.
That's cool.
That'll buy, with shipping, it'll buy basically two deliveries of tulips. So they can pick 2 people and send them tulips. So I emailed the farm this morning. I haven't heard back yet, But I emailed the farm this morning and said, look, you're going to get 100 orders of tulips hopefully in the next couple of days.
That's really awesome. So I should expect, do you need my address or how are you going to ship it to me?
On the way, John. They're on the way.
They're on the way. I knew they would be. Well, listen, that is good news. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to put out there in the world. That's the vibe we want to have. That's who we are at the core of our credit unions. And I'm so thankful for just even stories like that right now. They're so important. So always, Tom, thank you so much.
That's great, Tom.
All right, everybody. Hey, Jonathan, I'll reach out. You can just email me those rep gens. I'll get started.
Okay.
Good week.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.